welcome back to our podcast. I'm Lois.
I'm Jada.
I'm Bree.
And this is our special guest.
Hey guys, back again, Avery.
She's filling in for Lydia another week, and we're so glad she's here. So when we were warming up, we were all discussing when we were doing mic checks and everything, Avery says she has a funny story about our topic. And I was like, hold up. Save it for the camera. So we're all about to learn.
Okay, but this really hypes it up a lot. So you guys are probably going to be like, oh, that was it. Okay, but anyway, okay. COVID strikes, everything's like shut down. You can't go anywhere, whatever. So VBS wasn't the same as what we normally have. So we were having it in the fellowship hall, and the teens were leading-ish, like the skip parts. And I don't even know what lesson we were doing, but I wanted to be a part of it, of course. But all the lines were taken because the Frosts are late to everything. Mm-hmm. So I didn't get to get a part. Okay. And so I was like, please just let me be something. Anyway, I got to be a bush. And it sounds so, but it was the highlight, the best role I've ever had.
You were happy about it?
Yes. I was like, I wrapped myself in like a green sheet, and I got these like fake little plants, and I just squatted for the whole 20-minute skit. But let me tell you, I had those kids rolling, even just sitting there. So there's no small parts in the skit, which is what leads to the discussion. Sorry, long talk, but because our topic today is that how can God use me in the kingdom, and how everyone has a part in it. So.
Well, even a bush is useful, I guess.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. They could have gotten one from the store, but no.
They got something better.
You were the best bush anyone has ever seen. Okay. Anyway.
Avery, I love that story because I do, because we don't really see someone being a bush in a skit as very useful, but that's us not seeing it as being useful.
We don't measure usefulness the same way that God does.
Yes.
In the favor of Avery here, we'll look at the positive side
of the bush.
Of the bush. But when we stop viewing our weaknesses as hindrances and start seeing how God can use those and use the different things, he can use bushes
he can
in the church. And even, I'm sure that bush was just so motivating for all of the other kids, and they just knew you were there supporting them, and that was lovely. So there's worse things than being a bush. Mm-hmm. I think God specializes in using people who appear as weak or fragile or unimportant, mm-hmm, to get his will done and to do his jobs. Jada, do you want to read 2 Corinthians 6 to do his jobs? I don't know if that's the word I want to use. To proclaim his gospel.
2 Corinthians 4, 6 through 7.
2 Corinthians 4, 6 through 7. Yeah. Or just read verse 7. You don't have to read 6.
But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us.
What I want to take from that is jars of clay. So in our time, that would be like a plastic bag or something that we don't think, like we just throw it away. It's nothing. But God used it to carry a treasure. And that's what he does in us. Like, we're jars of clay. We're just a plastic bag. Our earthly vessels are nothing of value. But God sees our value, and he uses us to carry a treasure, his word.
Even though we're not deserving, we are just a plastic cup or a plastic bag, we're used as a priceless vase or sculpture. We're esteemed more.
And thinking that we're not good enough for God to use is literally just a lie. Because the Bible's full of unexpected people that you would have never thought, and God used them, and they did God's work. So we can't let the things that we see as flaws in ourselves stop us from doing God's work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a bush can be useful in the kingdom.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart that anyone would even think that they aren't useful or that they have no value, because again, that's just us putting that measurement on us when God doesn't do that. If he did, then he would be a God who shows partiality. And Romans 2:11 says that there is no partiality with God. And I truly believe that Satan uses this, because once we have that mindset of God can't use me because I'm not good enough, or I have no value, there's no value in me, then that's when we stop doing those things. We say, okay, well, I can't lead a Bible study, I can't do this, so we just don't do anything at all. And when the things that need to be done, we need to do. And so I think Satan definitely uses that.
I think that's a tactic Satan uses too, installing doubt in us. And that's a good way to get us not to do something, thinking we're not good enough.
And like, we're just scared, and sometimes we can use those things as excuses, but we still have to do things that are scary.
Yeah. I think that's a thing that we have to focus on, like in this study. It's the mindset and the emotions that are driving all of this. It's the human side that makes us feel like we aren't good enough and we can't do it.
Yeah.
When the scripture shows nothing of that.
Actually, in scripture, there's so many example after example after example of imperfect humans. I mean, everyone besides Jesus was an imperfect human.
Yeah.
And they are carrying the gospel. So every example we have, every hero of the Bible was a jar of clay.
And the biggest examples were some of the people who you would think were the worst. Like Paul or even Rahab and others. You know?
Yeah. I think we have a few different just examples in the Bible of things that we would view as weaknesses, but that God used through power. So let's run through them. What are y'all thinking?
Well, God used those with physical disabilities.
Yeah. Isaac was blind.
Yeah.
Moses had a stutter. Paul had a thorn in his flesh.
Didn't Timothy have like stomach issues or something?
Yeah. That's hilarious. I'm trying to think what else.
Me too, Timothy.
Okay. Maybe move aside from that.
Anyway, I think another example is God can use those who are old and those who are young.
Yeah.
Our age doesn't affect our ability to serve God. I think of going back to Timothy, you brought up Timothy. Let no man despise thy youth. That's in 1 Timothy 4:12 or around there. I think some examples of younger people in the Bible would be Esther, Joseph,
David. Wasn't he
David?
super?
He was
Josiah.
Is he the king who was 8? Yeah.
Timothy again. He was younger because he was an apprentice. Paul.
I think a big one that we kind of overlook sometimes was Mary. The Bible doesn't say her age, but they got married really young in the Bible times, like 13 years old or something like that. Imagine that responsibility as a 13-year-old, like being the mother of Jesus at 13 years old. I'm 20, and I cannot imagine being a mom at 13 years old.
No. 13, I don't even think I brush my teeth every day.
I mean, just the thought of all of that pressure, and we still use our youth as an excuse when we weren't the mom of Jesus at 13 years old. Yeah. But on the other side of that too, I think it's more and more common now to see the older people kind of just checking out right now. And that's something I've really just kind of been discouraged by is like the older people are supposed to be teaching us. We see from Timothy teaching Timothy. We see it from Lois. Hey, that's me. Teaching Timothy in the Bible. Why are we having such few older ladies teaching the younger ladies now?
You can't say it's for every congregation, but from my home congregation, it just seems like a lot of them are tapping out just because they're newer, energetic Christians who are on fire for the faith, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. We still want to encourage them to do it. But we still need the older women to be mentors and to guide. And they've gone through more than us. So they are wiser than us, which is reminds me in Job, there's a verse that's wisdom is with aged men and the length of days understanding. And that's kind of basic knowledge too. The more you live, the more you know, the more that you can then tell of others. That's also to relate to the Bible's, like Timothy's grandmother. She was older and she was such an example to him and taught him the gospel. We need these older people who have dealt with these situations and are wiser than us to guide us. We need involvement from all ages. The church benefits from young families and teens trying to spread the gospel, but we also benefit from the older mentors and older women guiding and shaping the newer and younger Christians.
I'm tired of excuses from both generations or both age groups, because you get it in all of the parties, all of the age parties. You get excuses from young people. You see that all the time. And I think young people get dogged for it a lot. Just a lot of shame, a lot of why are y'all not stepping up and all this stuff? And I'm like, well, why are y'all stepping down?
We all need to be stepping up.
It goes both ways. This is not a young people do this, old people do this. This is we are a body of Christ. Together. We're a family, and we're going to work so much. We're going to get so much more done working together. Yeah.
Or even they'll be like, this is the future of the church, and this is they're part of the church, or the ones I'm talking about, the teens that are baptized. It's no, you're not waiting. Their time isn't coming. It is
Their
coming.
time is here.
This is one of my pet peeves, and I'm so glad you brought this up. It drives me batty bananas, absolutely bonkers, when somebody says, sorry, that was a little aggressive. It makes me upset when people say, you're going to do great things for the kingdom.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that young people hear all the time. Is you're
Which
going
I
to do
think
great things.
goes into the mindset of the younger people. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you
No, you're
off.
good.
I'll just spitball this up. But like, then they're like, okay, it's not my time yet. Or like, I don't have to worry about these spiritual battles right now. The older ones have got it.
Like when I'm their age, I can take care of it.
yes.
And I think it is a good thing to like encourage the young and say like you're going to do great things, but you are doing great things. Let's remind our youth you can do great things right now. You are doing great things right now, and I think you'll continue to do great things.
Yeah.
So you can still say you're going to do great things, but you are doing great things in the kingdom.
Or at least you should.
Just
be.
keep doing
should
great
be, yes.
things. Yeah.
It just because you're young doesn't mean that you can't. I think that's what I hear all the time. It's just you're going to do great things for the kingdom. I feel so great leaving the church in your hands, like all that stuff, which is a weird thing to say in the first place. But beside the point, it drives me crazy because right now we can do so much good for the
God
kingdom.
can use
not
us
in the future.
right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And especially, I think when the older people are like, you're the future of the church, but they're still here. Like, they can still they can be the future too and continue to help the younger people, like you said.
Well, and it's making me think, we had a girls' day at Subligna Road, and there was a time where we had discussion and everyone was talking. And how much wisdom I learned from those younger girls.
Yeah, I loved
absolutely. Like, I was in tears. It was amazing.
Quite literally, her and Bree were both.
But seriously,
surprise.
God was using those younger girls in the kingdom.
Yes.
And it was amazing.
I mean, these are young teenagers.
Yes.
Like, some of them couldn't even drive.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, like, just amazed, so encouraged.
Like,
and
literally
uplifted.
speechless by the things they were saying.
And in tears, apparently. What are some other ways that God can use us or can use people in the kingdom?
Well, I think when you're struggling or maybe going through a hardship or something that you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think of Paul and Silas when they were in prison in Acts 16. It just amazes me that his hope was continually in the Lord, even though he was in a hardship. And what he did was when, in verse 25, we see that they were singing hymns. And I mean, you would think that that was just a simple thing, that nothing would really come out of it. But I feel like the most important part was in verse 25. It says that the prisoners were listening. And so they were listening and they were getting everything that they were singing. And like we had talked about, like hymn sometimes has scripture in it. And so they were encouraging through Christ. And even though they were in prison, he was influencing the prisoners. And in verse 31, we see that the prisoner guard asked Paul, he said, he asked him, what must I do to be saved? And it says that his household was baptized along with the guard. And so God used Paul and Silas because they were in a hardship to save souls. And I mean, think about if that didn't happen, then that may have never come to be. And so because of that, a soul was saved.
Yeah. They're like, out of the hardships or the worst struggles comes the greatest victories.
Yeah, for sure. I think even when we don't want to be somewhere, we should be focusing on how can God use me here. And would I be singing hymns if I was in prison? I can't say I would be. I can't say that that's something I just wow to them for that. It's amazing. I think if somebody else going through hardship and praising God would be Job.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, the perfect example of somebody who went through so much hardship and was loyal to God the whole time.
Praising God the whole time.
Too,
Yeah.
or from his friends.
Yeah.
From
his
people
own
that were
wives.
closest to him saying,
Yeah.
just curse God.
His wife just curse
Yeah.
God and die. Imagine your spouse telling you to curse God and kill yourself. And he still stayed strong for God through that hardship. Yeah.
Obviously, Jesus is the ultimate example of that.
Yes.
Of going through
hardship. Yeah. The ultimate example. For sure. What are some other ways that God can use us or other people God can use in the kingdom?
Well, God can use me even when people treat me like I can't. Like we talked about being young, the verse, let no one despise your youth. Even when people are saying, oh, you're young. No, that's not. Even when people are doubting you, God can still use you. In Hebrews 11, 11:31, it says, "By faith, Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient because she had given a friendly welcome to the spies." I think most people would not think of a prostitute being someone that God's going to use, but he did, and she's literally in the Hall of Faith now.
The Hall of Faith.
I've never heard that before. It's pretty good.
I've heard it, but not just like that kind of caught me off guard. Like, whoa, that's pretty good.
I think a lot of times we struggle with what others think about us just in our daily life, and that flows into our faith. Because, I mean, again, if we're Christians, those two are together, they're intertwined. And so when some things come into our life, they automatically start flowing into our faith.
And other people's reactions, like you said, like it affects us so much along like their influence and the devil, and like, I mean, all the enemy wants to do is keep us down. They like to whisper lies. You can't do that. That's not your strengths. You're not good at that. Or you look embarrassing up there, or whatever. But instead of acknowledging our weak points, we need to use them to magnify God's strength instead of how we often just shrink back. Mm-hmm. We can't allow the enemy to keep us from being about our Father's business. He can use us for his glory and good, regardless of the personality types. You know?
Yeah. And regardless of where you come from.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a preacher I know, I won't say his name, but him and his wife, ? It might have just been him, might have just been his wife. One of them was a bartender before they were Christians.
Mm-hmm.
I think both of them actually were bartenders before they were Christians. And then they learned the truth, got baptized, and now he's a faithful preacher at a very well-known, hardworking congregation, and just an amazing person, an amazing family. And he got through his hardships, and now God's using him in amazing ways. So whatever your past is, that can't be what's holding you back from serving God.
Mm-mm.
I think another way that God can use us, or another aspect that he uses us, are introverts and extroverts.
Oh, yeah. Because I'm pretty introverted, and you can't let that be an excuse to not do God's work. You don't have to just like go up to every single person in the grocery store. There's ways that an introvert can do God's work too. Like, I mean, I'm talking to y'all right now. I don't always want to go and talk to people, but like you said, we can't use our weaknesses to hold us back. And being an introvert isn't a bad thing. They have qualities that extroverts don't have, and God can use them in ways that he wouldn't be able to use extroverts. Same for extroverts. You can, Lois is an extrovert. She talks to everyone in the grocery store.
The church is, like, as we know, also called the body of Christ. I was wondering, could you read 1 Corinthians 12, verse 12 for me?
Yes.
Before I go into this whole debriefing.
I'll talk to everybody in the grocery store.
She does. She really does.
That's what my mama does for fun. She goes to Walmart to meet people.
She does for
What?
fun.
She sees
I love
someone,
that.
if someone says Roll Tide, I know we're going to be in there forever.
It's an automatic best friend. You don't understand unless you're in, okay? It's different. And then when the cashier will talk to me, it makes my day. When I always have to like peep in little questions like, hey,
How are you?
how are you? And if they start talking, I'm like, yes.
But now that I'm thinking about it, we would literally have like met people in the grocery store and like come to church with us, and they do. So
They do. Yeah,
We have done that.
There was this worker, quick little side story before you read this. There was this worker who was actually somebody we're studying with.
Yeah.
He didn't have a car at the time. And so we went to Walmart with him, he went to Walmart with us. I guess I drove him. Anyway, and he knew a worker there. And so he like introduced us. We're just like, they were just talking. And I'll talk to anybody. So
I don't even remember how it came up, but it was like,
I know I was looking for bug poison.
he wanted us to do something with him. And we were like, well, will you come to church with us? And he did.
No, he wanted to come to my house. This is so funny. He wanted to come to my house to spray the bug poison because I was trying to spray all around my outside of my house because I was afraid because they were cutting down trees around my house and I didn't want bugs to come in my house. And so I was getting bug poison and he helped me find it. And I was like, I don't know how to use this. And he was like, do you want me to come do it for you? And I was like, whoa. And so like I got his number and then I was like, you should come to church with us sometime. And then he did, and he came to like our youth day that we had too. Anyway, beside the point. But
just random
happens.
conversations,
like, random
can
conversations
lead to
can
that.
lead to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you wanna read that verse now?
1 Corinthians 12:12 says, "For as the body is one and has many members, but all the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is Christ."
a body has different parts to function, you know, like legs for walking, ears to hear, hands for holding, and obviously mouth for talking. That's all we do on here. Yeah. Okay. But this is what Paul is paralleling in the verse, is that the church to the human body. The church needs all kinds of people and personalities to be successful. This made me think a lot of like the differences between my sister and I. I am an extroverted person. I cannot be alone. Like this week has been so long. Anyway, and so I'm constantly finding ways to connect with people and just, I don't know, be social. And in the church, I use my outgoing side and expressive side to connect with the kids and the visitors and just start conversations. It doesn't bother me to strike up a conversation with a stranger or do a funny voice to get the kids to like loosen up and feel at ease at church. My sister, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. It takes maybe meeting her, like a full introduction. Hi, my name is so-and-so. What's your name? Like 5 times before she'll actually strike up a conversation with someone. And she cannot be in the center of attention. That's just not for her.
Not her thing.
And to that, you might think, well, how can God use her if she is so shy? But it reminds me of 1 Corinthians 12, verse 22. Not much rather, those members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary. I think Mallory's gentle nature helped her connect in different ways than me. She makes bulletin boards, paints for VBS, bakes brownies for people, and other things as well. These acts may not be as grand or easily seen, because it's grand makes it seem like I'm doing a higher thing than her. But the whole point is that they're all necessary and they're all equal in showing Christ's love to others. Many of the more reserved women in the church show more empathy and nurture. And it reminds me of, Jada, could you read Ephesians 4, verses like 1 through 2?
I, therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you are called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love.
Okay, so the shire? I don't even know this word. Anyway, the shire women in the church show a different part of Christ by their gentle and humble actions in their work for the Lord. You can serve God in all that you do. Extroverts can get people in the doors, but I feel like introverts, when you really connect with them, can help show Christ's love and encourage them to stay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really good.
It's really good.
I remember when I was little, like I did not like people. I didn't want to be around people. I would hide behind my mom if anyone tried to talk to me. And I just didn't, I don't know. I felt like I couldn't connect with people. I just didn't want to be around people. So I was very, very extra introverted. And then like later in life, I guess not when I was baptized because I was still kind of introverted. But then after I just started really getting into scripture, I just started becoming this extrovert. And like, I just love being around people and love talking to people. And it's just, so God can use you. Even, I mean, he can use introverts, but I think also don't just automatically label yourself as this is what I am.
Yeah, God can use you to get out of your comfort zone.
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, very true.
I think a question to drive all this home is, why does God use us? Why would God use us?
Ephesians 2:20 says, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. We were created for good works, and that's exactly why he would use us, because that's what we were created to do.
It's what he created us to do.
Yeah. We're also, Matthew 5:16 says, in the same way, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your God in heaven. So we're a vessel for him, and we're this light that's supposed to be guiding others to him.
And back to our weaknesses and everything, our weaknesses and imperfections and different struggles that we've been through can lead us to help people who are also going through those struggles in ways that we wouldn't if we didn't have those struggles that we have gone through. We can reach people that other people can't reach because of that.
Yeah, because in every situation, I mean, I think of John 9:5, it says, as long as I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. So that is, and it doesn't say as long as I'm happy, as long as I'm in a specific place. It's always, if I'm in the world, which we are, then I am the light of the world. And I also, when I was studying for this, I don't even know why it just came to my mind, but I didn't even think about this in this context, but we should be evidence of him. In Hebrews 11, 11:1 says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen." And as we continue through the chapter, it says, by faith Abel, by faith Enoch, by faith Sarah. And their faith was the evidence that there is this God that we get to serve. That
I
is
never
beautiful.
thought about it that way. I love that.
I never thought about it like that either. And I was like, wow.
Going back to good works, Titus 3:1 tells us to be ready for every good works. Verse 8 says, "This saying is trustworthy. I want you to insist on these things so that those who have believed in God may be careful to devote themselves to good works. Those things are excellent and profitable for people." So we were created for good works, and good works calls for our devotion. If we read Titus 3, we see that good works are practical acts of love that meet people's needs. Verse 14 says, "And let our people learn to devote themselves to good works so as to help cases of urgent need and not be unfruitful." Seeing a need and meeting that need is how we do good works, and that's how God uses us in the kingdom. So what are good works in the kingdom that we can do?
I think a big one is just, first off, sharing the gospel.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that we can do, is bringing the gospel to other people.
And that's a command that no one is exempt from.
No one.
Young, old, introvert, extrovert. We're all commanded to go and teach the gospel.
Matthew 28:19, "Go therefore and make disciples of all men."
And there's so many ways to do that as well that fits all the different personalities. There's like the big mission trips going across. There's just mission work within. You can do door knocking, just cards with like who runs that? Like there's an evangelism whatever that goes around and starts card. What do you call that? Groups.
Is it Rob Whitaker?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we just got started doing that. Like, and so then you're not even having to be in the face, like face to face. So, but there's so many ways where it's kind of impossible for us not to obey that, to share the gospel.
Yes.
There's no easy. Oh, but I'm shy.
Yeah.
You can write.
For sure.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
His daughter, I forgot her name.
Hannah?
But I don't know if she's an introvert or an extrovert, but we have the like cards that she has made.
Oh, yeah. She does like
write.
photography.
And like,
she
that's
does-
great.
Yeah, and that's
Like,
a great way God's using her.
Yeah.
I think another way God uses us is by our influence, because we are influencing people whether we like it or not. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. We need to make sure we're using it as a good thing. And our influence can help us. Like, Lois can reach people that Avery might not be able to reach and get them to church.
The Alabama fans.
Roll Tide.
Yeah,
Got all
she's
them.
influencing Alabama fans.
I can connect real good with a Bama fan.
Or like the people I go to work with, I'm influencing them every day. So I need to make sure, like, if I invite them to church, they're not like, why would Jada invite me to church, you know?
They should want to get to know Christ because of you.
Yeah.
For sure.
And we can't forget that every single soul we come across deserves to hear God's word just as much as we do. Every single person in the grocery store deserves the gospel just as much as we do. So we have to let the things holding us back. We have to remember how important it is that every single soul deserves the gospel.
I kind of recently came out of my shell, which is a lot. I mean, saying something crazy for me because
You're in a shell?
I'm crazy. Anyway, I've been telling people that I'm not a people person anymore, and that's just, it's probably not true because I don't talk to anybody. But I have a sinus infection right now, so I had to go to the doctor yesterday and get a steroid shot so I could talk today. But my doctor, I was just rambling on to him. Like rambling on. I would not be quiet. And I was
That
telling
is nothing new, you guys. It's not.
Well, the point of this is, instead of rambling about who knows what, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start rambling with purpose, which sounds
good.
So weird. Okay, anyway. But I started rambling on about the podcast and how just PTP, Polish the Pulpit, and House to House, and like the podcast, just random church things. I mean, I was telling you, that doctor was in there for a long time. We were just chatting it up. And I'm not saying this to brag on myself. I'm just saying that I realized that instead of rambling on about things about football, because y'all know I could talk about football all the time, I should talk about anybody I meet. That might be the only time I meet them.
Yes.
To say something about the church. And even if I could just plant the seed, then God will give the increase.
Well,
and that's my job.
That's you using a talent God gave you for his kingdom. Like, you could just use it to ramble about anything, but you're using it for God. So that's how God's using you.
When he left my room after a long time, he was like, thank you so much for standing up for the faith. Like, I love that. You don't see that very often. And I was like, maybe we don't see that very often because we're all don't go out of our shell to do that.
Yeah.
Or like we're scared, because for me, a lot of times I'm like, oh no, what if I say something wrong? Or like, what if my words don't come out right?
Oh,
or,
I say something wrong all the time.
Yeah. But really, it's okay though. It's
is.
fine. Everything just, and sometimes when you say the wrong thing,
You make
As
yourself more relatable.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so relatable. That's one thing I said. Coming to this podcast, all of y'all were like, "Oh, I cannot wait to see you on this, Lois." I say the wrong thing all the time. So Jada especially was like, "You were just gonna be yourself on there. It's gonna be so funny." And I was like, "Oh no, I'm so glad you think it's funny because I say the wrong
But
word.
people would rather see the real you. So.
Oh, you get 100% me. That's for sure.
Yeah, I have no filter. Like, my emotions are on my sleeve. So, and then it drives the family crazy. They're like, you just because you think it doesn't mean it has to come out of your mouth, and something that I probably need to work on. But like you said, like it kind of, I feel like it helps connect to people and like it's more relatable. But aside to another thing that you said, like that we put the doubts in ourselves. We're like, oh, I don't think I can, and then that's just once again making excuses for our Christian walk. And then we see in the Bible that God does not put up with that.
Yeah.
Like Moses made several excuses when he was called by God to deliver the Israelites out of Egypt. But God continued to tell Moses that he would use him as his vessel so the Israelites would see God's power through Moses. For every excuse Moses gave, God had an answer. Exodus 14 or so says, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. God put a stop to Moses' excuses. And so that were like, it's easy for us to make excuses today. I know I make plenty of them. One, like, okay, I have a problem rolling my eyes a lot. And so I did it once when I was getting in trouble.
Why am I not surprised?
Anyway,
I think she just did it.
okay, I'm really trying to work on it. But I rolled my eyes while I was getting in trouble with my parents. And then Mom was like, did you just roll your eyes at me? I'm like, gotta cut those out. Not very Christian like anyway. But God uses the unqualified and the little people, in a sense, to do big things for him.
Yeah.
And that's when his power is clearly seen.
Yeah.
Matthew 5:16 says, in the same way, let your light shine before men so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. The goal is not for us to do good things so that others look at us, but so that others look to Jesus.
Yes. Yeah. I remember one of my favorite good works is prayer. And I got a message on Instagram from a friend that I barely knew. I'd met her once for like 5 minutes. And I said, hey friend, I'm praying for you today. That was all it was. I was having the worst day ever. And that message just helped me so much. It was Brie. And now she prays for me all the time. And I can talk to her about the things I'm going through. But I barely knew her then. And it helped me so much.
That was so sweet.
Don't cry.
we're almost at the end. I'm gonna hold it in. I've already done it once.
She wasn't expecting that. You caught her off guard. But prayer is such a good word that we can use. It's a huge
and it
one.
seems like a small thing, but it's a huge thing.
It is
really
huge.
It doesn't take much effort on our part, but it's a huge thing that helps so many people.
And then look at how, like, that just you saying, like, I'm praying for you or whatever, that it made such a connection. And so even though it wasn't bringing a new Christian to the faith, it did strengthen the bond within the church, within each other, which helps keep it going. Adding souls isn't the only thing. It's
Strengthening the church.
Strengthening each other. I think another good work I think of is helping the widows in your congregation. That's a huge one that Jada and I have just loved. We love the widows of Jacksonville. They're some of my favorite people in the world.
Miss Faye, I've been visiting her a lot this week. But when I first moved to Jacksonville, me and Lois went to Miss Faye's house, and her husband had just recently passed away. And I remember her telling us about how she met him and how much she loved him. It was the way they met is just the sweetest story. And she was so sad that she lost him, but she said, God was good to me then and he'll be good to me now. And that encouraged me so much. And I know us going and helping her encourages her. It's a command to go and help the widows. It's what does the Bible say that helping the widows is? Pure and undefiled religion is helping the orphans and the widows. But it's so good for both parts. Like, she encouraged me, we encourage her. Yeah. It's such a good work.
It is. I always leave so encouraged after seeing the widows, and it's just, they go through more pain in a day than I do in a year, but what a lifetime. and they still have a smile on their face. I think we just went to see Miss Faye. She's in the hospital, and she was laughing. She was just
and
cracking
she told us,
up.
she said, laughter is what gets me through it. And I was so sad for her leaving her in that hospital, but being able to make her smile helped her so much. And it helped me so much just getting to see her.
Just to see her, for sure. Well, I guess let's try to wrap it up there. We're a little long-winded today. But just remembering that God can use even clay jars in his kingdom for any good work. These are just a few of the good works that we can do, but we can be used in so many good ways for God's glory and carrying this treasure for him, which is the gospel. So thank you for joining us today, ladies. Remember to follow our socials, and we'll see you next week.